It's been a crazy week, jaw-dropping weekend for me anyways, just watching the news. But to tell you the truth, I wasn't surprised. When I saw that video of George Floyd a week ago, and with my wife, we were just, it didn't make sense. And the one that really struck a chord with me was Ahmaud Arbery, just because I worked in North Carolina at Campbell University. I was probably the only Asian in town, to tell you the truth, and I would go for jogs, myself and my the director of operations, Dion Curry, actually. We would go for jogs on roads that looked exactly like that. So that just tripped me out, just to see something like that happen for a guy that was just going for a run. So first of all, my thoughts and prayers go out to all of you guys and your student athletes and all of us. You know, we're minorities, and so you've all had your own respective challenges. You all had to maneuver in this world and this coaching profession as a minority. And so we never put this association together to like fight for anything, but it's worked out that way. And we're here, we're a minority. We're the Asian Coaches Association. We're here to support each other and definitely support our African-American friends, and as they're challenged to survive and thrive in this crazy, wild, historic time. I've never seen anything like it, except when I was young. The LA riots were happening, and I didn't know what was going on, but this obviously is just worldwide, nationwide. So hope everybody's doing okay, and hopefully we can just dive into for 60 to 90 minutes into some basketball and just learn about what we all love to do, which is coach. You guys are all, feel free to type in the chat, because Garrett's got you muted right now, so while our speakers talk, but we definitely want this to be really informal and everybody to just feel free to ask questions. And because today we got two speakers, Coach Inouye and Coach Peck. They have an enormous amount of coaching experience. Both have been coaches professionally and at the college level as well, and then Coach Peck, high school level. So we want to get into like nuts and bolts, like fundamentals, like offense and defense. So we're going to start ladies first. So we're going to go with Coach Tamara Inouye, and she is our she's actually spoken at the women's event, Final Four event in the past, and has done a fantastic job. She's a ton of experience. She's played and coached in Australia. Is kind of like an Orange County legend on the women's side here in Southern California as well. She took over UC Irvine 5 years ago and has turned them into a winner, had the best season in 35 years. I looked it up, 36 years, a couple seasons ago, and made multiple NCAA tournaments while she was at New Mexico, also serving as well as a senior women's administrator. So she knows a lot about both coaching and the administration side. But today, I think you're going to talk about offense, Coach. So let's hear it for Coach Inouye.
Awesome. Let me just share. Make sure you guys can see this. I think this will be the best way to do it. Okay. Can you guys see the screen? Okay. Cool. All right. First thing, I just want you guys to know that our school won the mascot challenge of the Tokyo Dashi. So we are through and through Asian at this school. So for me to be the head coach here, it's kind of fun. And I'm just going to make sure that you guys see this, because we worked really hard to win this award. So last year Grand Canyon won it. This year there's no way we weren't going to. So pretty proud of this. You guys will see this everywhere today. But feel free to purchase it all the time, because all that money goes to athletics. So keep supporting UCI. We appreciate that. Second thing, just like Mike said, I think that what's going on today is something we cannot ignore. We are educators first and foremost. We work for universities, for high school, for club teams. We are in the business of youth. And I think that one thing we can always do is educate ourselves and make sure we are always understanding what's going on. This book is a must read if you haven't, especially if you are not of color. This is something that I think we can all learn from and just get an idea and help with conversations that go. Second thing, I'm a nerd. If you can tell already, I like to read a lot. If you have a daughter, if you coach women's hoops, if you're involved with anything like that, Under Pressure is one of my better reads I've had in a long time to understand how young females grow up, young girls with anxiety in this world that we live in today. And then on the fun side, oh, hey, look, there's my anteater. Hey, and then on the right side, I don't know if you guys read it all about leadership, but this is probably one of my better leadership books I've read in a long time. It talks about the All Blacks in New Zealand and their winning record. They're over an 80 percentile overall since they've started, and that's pretty phenomenal. So recommend that book too. Okay, basketball stuff, what we're here for. Look, I'm going to talk about transition, dribble drive stuff. That's kind of the trend. I see more now going back to the triangle. I see now the Princeton offense coming back. For me, I run on dribble drive simply because at the mid-major level, I can't recruit bigs at the high level of the BCS programs. I tend to get my big is 6'3". And so unless I can get those 6'8", which if anybody has them, please call me, I'll take them. But if you don't, we really have that struggle to get those type of size. So I felt the dribble drive offense, learning it from Adrian Wiggins, who's a big mentor of mine, really taught it to me, and it's just kind of stuck with me from Australia onwards. But for us, our first and foremost is transition. This year we had 7 injuries. 4 of them were starters for us. We just needed to change everything up. So our points per possession wasn't as high as I like it to be. But this is kind of what we do in transition. For the philosophy of it is, first and foremost, if you don't have a point guard, don't run transition. You'll have more turnovers than you will good possessions. So I think with a point guard, if they understand that, that's your key. The next thing is just being patient. Once we get past half court is really where we start breaking film down and seeing what we see. And the point guard is the one I really heavily rely on. Practice-wise, how we get good at this, swallow your whistle. Don't use your whistle in practice when you're doing transition drills. It is the worst thing to do for players, and it makes them constantly look over at you. If they're looking at you, you're not doing your job if you want to run a fast-paced game. It is very difficult for my coaches and for us, but if they blow their whistle, I'll make my assistants run. We all run. Don't blow your whistle. It makes your players second-guess themselves. Emphasis for us, look, we had the opportunity and the luxury of going to Japan this past summer. One thing I learned, and I've been there. I used to go every year as a kid, spend a month over there. My dad's from Japan. I never got exposed to basketball out there because I spent time with family. But when I was able to go out there, my former teammate, Kyoko, who I played with in college, really helped me set this up and go out there. And we were just in awe of the way they can pass the ball, on top of other things. I mean, they're the cliche of discipline. Sure, they are very disciplined. But what we were most impressed with coaches and my players was their passing, just the sharp shooting passing. So we really took it back. We actually had some of the coaches run drills for us. We filmed them. We brought it back. We emphasized it with our team. I felt like we did better at that, and we'll continue to. The other thing we really emphasize in transition as well is footwork. My associate head coach grew up in the gym of Pete Newell Jr., which is obviously the son of Pete Newell Sr. And we've just been exposed to this footwork that she just drills into our team. And I think that has really benefited us, as well as Pete being able to come down and just have conversations with us. He's getting older, but his mind is just as sharp as it ever has been. So we've been very blessed and very lucky to have such good people around my program. So I'll just go through some stats. If Jeff's on this, really apologize. You kind of were one of our last games, so that's why these clips are on there. Nothing beyond that, okay? So obviously we'll just kind of run some clips through. We like to just go. Lauren, she led the nation in assists, was number 4 nationally ranked, and broke the all-time record this year in assists. So you'll see once we get it out and go, I mean, we don't look like we're that fast, but it's decisions by half court of what we can see. If they don't sink in, we get it out wide. We always want to hit corners and spread the offense out as best as we can. So once we get it, and we're not a great rebounding team, but once we get it, we go. My 5s and my 4s are constantly running. My shooters are always looking. If my shooters don't shoot, they get subbed out. They have to shoot the ball. And if they don't, then they just decide to sit next to me and have conversations. But yeah, so this is what we do, catch it. And then once we run the floor, hopefully it's not skipping too much. But again, by this point, Lauren is able to read and read and read. She's just patient, and I hope that I get another point guard like this soon. But very patient, just waits and sees, and then she finds. And we teach her that constantly in the middle of the floor. You'll never see us on wings. We're always in the middle. And then obviously our threes help our points per possession because we weren't the greatest this year at it. But again, rebounding and going, you'll see our guards constantly wide, and then our fives hit that middle. And the wider we go, the better. I always feel our players, especially with the Pete Newell footwork that we pound in there, our guards are very confident and comfortable on the outside to be able to go. Again, just coming out wide, sinking in, pulling out. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with threes in transition. Some coaches aren't. I personally wasn't as a college player, but when I was in Australia, um, I guess threes are the way to go. So I conformed and love threes now. So again, SMU, we were able to go play some pretty big teams this year, but just no fear. That's a freshman. Just no fear being able to shoot the ball was what I love. I love to see my players never have to worry about looking over at me. And so just constantly pushing the ball down the floor, pitches. We look at that. Um, this is before anything. This seamlessly runs into the dribble drive. Everyone has their opinions and ways to run it. Some people start higher, some people start lower. It just, I think, goes make up to your team of what you believe is best where to attack from.
Coach, so the only person allowed to bring it up is a point guard?
Nope, anybody can bring it up. Obviously, this year we had a pretty phenomenal point guard. So and she played 40 minutes because my other 2 point guards had season-ending injuries. So she was supposed to play 15 minutes for me, and then so I think started crying when she found out she had to play 40 minutes for me. But she's the only point guard we have this year. But normally it would be anybody that can handle that rock as good as they want. But our team was very in tuned and very, very just wanting to give the ball to Lauren. So we want her to kick up. So this one right here with Lex, like if she can kick up early by half court, now we say Lex, so the person on the right side, now she's the point guard because the ball is already out of the hands before the half court decision is made. So she either racks it or she makes the next pass for that score. So again, half court, Chloe's got the ball, half court. Oh yeah, she played for us a little bit this year. We lost her. But again, just coming out, going. So as she goes, it's all half court. Once the half court goes, now she's the point guard, stops at the free throw line, makes the decision. Always looking, always patient, always. And my players know to look for the ball or else they'll be hitting the back of the head from it. So again, just transition looks, always looking, always finding as quickly as possible. And these are virtually 1 passes only to the score. And so we don't want to create 2 and 3 passes. We just want to go.
What are the rules for the 4s and 5s running the floor? Like trailer, runner,
Yeah.
get out of the way?
We definitely don't really have 4s and 5s. This year we did just because that's all we had left. Normally I don't do that. We play just 4 guards. So, but with this, the first 4 or 5 down is immediately to the block. The other 5 or 4, whichever one wants to go, is going to be either continually going to the opposite side or will stop depending on where the defense is. So this one we have 4 and 5. We have Sophie and Talia in there. So Talia immediately takes the 5 as you see it down the floor. Soph will drag behind. So we just sit that. But normally that's going to be a guard for us.
And then on another question, on a made basket, who takes the ball out? Is it the closest
Guard.
person?
No, it's the 4, whoever we nominate to be the 4, which is a guard.
Got it.
Yeah, we don't like post players taking the ball out because 1, it takes them forever to get down the floor. So we want them to hurry and not be the last down the floor. And 2, if anybody decides to want to press us, we don't believe they can with a guard taking the ball up the floor. This is when we could press in the beginning of the season. But this is, again, just something that we look at. If we steal a half court, we don't do much but score back. We always fight for that. Again, we look at the percentage of points per possession in transition. We really push first. We like to get a lot of possessions in. So that's the transition stuff. Hey, look, there's an angry guy again. Okay. Hey, pitch, kickback. So a lot of stuff in the dribble drive. It's just a pitch. One thing we emphasize is getting to those drop zones, which is right in the free throw line area. And the biggest thing on a pitch is anybody that has a pitch, their eyes have to stay up. And then our bigs, we let them move as best as possible. We have some different dynamic post players as well as our traditionals. So there's not real clear defined rules. It's really just reading what their defense does. So on this, like right now, we have 4 guards on the floor. See, it's even hard for our guards to get down the floor quick. They're so damn slow. So right now here, Lauren decides to pitch it real far back, which is where you want it, 6 to 8 feet spacing. And the minute she attacks it, eyes are up. And if you can notice, I know it's not quickly noticeable, but they're in a zone. Riverside played the zone this year, which is fine. We still run it. We don't deter from not running our stuff. It's just a little different in the way we space. But here, it's just a simple downhill. They commit. You dish it down to the 5. So same thing right here, because we've now created a 3 gap. Lauren should take it to the middle and pitch it, and then she has a wide open layup. And that's something recognized that we do. So she should see nothing but either 35 on the weak side if she commits, or just see basket. We've opened the floor completely for that.
So you said 3 gaps. So you're saying like I know like double. So when she shallow cut, that was a 3 gap. So that's a 3
Yeah.
gap.
So now that 21 has gone through, you've got 4 people on the opposite side. So now what you've got given is Lauren the ability to break somebody down, which wasn't her strength. So I would say don't do that. I would say go give somebody that can do it a little quicker. So she recognizes that. And plus Lauren's chasing assists more than scoring. So her smartest thing to do is get to that drop zone for number 15, who can be a little bit more powerful, a little taller, to be able to draw a lot of attention. Lauren drives to the basket. People salivate to block her shot. So we try. I've spent 4 years of teaching her not to do that. So she finally, after the 4th year, maybe the last 5 games of the season, she's learned not to take it to the basket all the way. So this is something we teach them. But so she sees this, recognizes it. So why she goes to the pitch to Lex is simply because she's taller, and no one is on the right side of the floor anymore. So Lex now has a freedom. This is why we say head up to drive in. She should see rack first. If not, she's immediately going to hit the 5. So that's just head up vision.
And then that pitch back, like point guards don't know what to do there, like how to help.
Right. It's do you switch it? Do you stay with it? What do you want to do with it? And so it just creates confusion at a very difficult spot. So that free throw line area, you better be decisive, because that's a hotbed of scoring.
Alfred Chan wants to ask you a question before you move on to the switch in defense. Alfred, you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure, thank you. So, Coach, what do you guys just go right into the dribble drive if the quick shot isn't there, or are there any secondary actions that you designate to kind of read? And also, what kind of breakdowns have you found most effective for players to learn the transition offense in practice?
So I'll go backwards. So from your question, so what drills do we do? Blood drills. We do a lot of blood drills in the sense of just understanding to speed up. I don't know how you guys find it on men's and the women's side of recruiting, but every recruiter I talk to, Coach, I want to play fast. I want to run and gun. I want to do this. Yeah, sure. Okay, that means you actually got to go hard and play hard all the time. So when they come to practice and we do blood drills and they're on the side bending over, it's just a great opportunity for me to put my hand around them and go, this is what you wanted. You said you wanted to play hard, play fast, play in this style. So blood drills are the best thing to do, I think, to immediately train them to keep that motor up all the time. As far as that drill is probably the most effective one I've had. And you can go from 20 blood from 21 all the way up. Then from there,
blood drill real quick, like a quick summary for maybe some of us who don't know what it is.
Yeah, blood drills are just number situations. So it's like a 3-on-2, a 2-on-1. Constant defense is full court defense on you, learning how to break somebody down and score quickly. You can only shoot or one pass. Those are the only rules you get. And then if you don't do that, you lose points and you battle against each other. I can easily send you guys the packet if you guys want that. That's no problem. Just let me know. And then other than that, for me, I benefit more from 5-on-5. We have the luxury here of having practice players. Not all Asian. We actually got some tall ones here. So that's been really, really helpful, just having some practice players as well to go 5-on-5 with guys that tend to speed us up naturally. So that's been good too. As far as the transition, one pass, we don't have anything. Yeah, we pull it out. And if you can re-attack, we re-attack right away. If not, we have some initial like offense, the secondary offenses to jump into. Or if we're trying to just get a quick score, someone's got a hot hand, we'll run some quicks. My package is pretty high. I have about 55 to 60 plays a year. So my players always get mad at me because they said that they wanted just to play the dribble drive. And I said, well, score them. Then we don't have to do these plays. So, yes, we do have a package. Yes, we do play it. And it also depends on who we play to. Once you get into conference, coaches are really good in this conference and they scout you really well. So sometimes you run more packages than you do dribble drive. Does that answer everything, Coach?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, no problem. Switching defense, we just play high and wide and a lot of back screens. Like I just said, we have 50 or 60 plays. Maybe I'll use 5 a game. More importantly, we just really teach them to play. So this one you'll just kind of see, and it's not Pomona, it's Cal Poly. But what we do is we just move and back screens high and wide because Cal Poly loves to switch. And so we're constantly just hitting and hitting and hitting to see what we can get. And a lot of times we'll end up in a layup out of it. So just so other people on switching, you curl off of it, you flare, you get mismatches, you on ball, you pull it out. Whatever works for you. For us, we play the high and wide game, and we just go after it pretty hard. The players love it. I just kind of listen to my players and what they like, but they tend to tell me they want to do this. They want layups. Versus zone, there's a lot of things. I see a lot of zone more and more as I'm coaching. It wasn't around for a while. It's just, oh man, these last couple of years, I see more zone in conference especially, and I'm shocked, but it's okay. We'll adjust to it. I actually am lucky enough to spend 2 summers with Charlie at ASU. She lets me come into her practice, lets me sit with her and her assistants, and we just talk about zone because I remember she beat up my mentor pretty bad about 7 years ago on this high, medium, low zone that they run. So I just spent time with her, learned it, and it's just really about gapping. At the end of the day, she just tells me, don't overthink it. Don't have these miraculous plays. Just work on gaps. And so what we do is really with the dribble drive, spacing out, we work on gapping, and we also use the high post area quite a bit. So it's just we look at that, we'll post it up, but same thing in transition. We always want to push first. But once we get into it here, we're still in the dribble drive, as you can see, still moving, but instead of that, we'll get a high post recovery instead of you continually going side to side to side as you would in man. And then, 35 is wide open, but I'm pretty sure Lex will shoot this, which is good. So those are things that we really, really pound. You'll see it again. The other thing in zones is what we do is we get our guards to post up more too. We really ask our guards to get down there, be strong. Danny, she's a junior for us. She gets obviously scout away outside, but she is very strong. So we really force her to post up more. She doesn't like it, but she wants to play, she'll do it. So, but same type of thing, just motion, moving, sealing. And again, right there, that was perfect. Just kind of sealing of the opposite guard. And we look at that a lot too. So there's no real play calls. It's just reads and reacts. And the way I really believe in my team is, I didn't recruit them to be robots. You know, I recruited them to play, and I recruited them to just have fun. You know, but as long as they win, then we'll continue to have fun. If we don't, then we're not gonna have fun. But that's pretty much it. I just try to keep it as quick and brief as possible. Look, my details, I'll share to you again. I love talking X's and O's, philosophies, transition, coaching in Australia. I think what I learned was be fast. I had the luxury of playing with a 24-second clock and an 8-second backcourt. Coaches can't call timeouts in the middle of a game. You gotta let your players call it. And so those things I think I learned a lot from. And when I came back to the States, I was able to implement that a lot with my mentor, Coach Track, when he let me come to New Mexico State with him. And he allowed that fast-paced game to really go after those athletes. So that's kind of more where I come from on that sense. Going to Japan this past year, man, that was a wake-up call for us too. So it just rejuvenated us on how fast we really can play. So those are things that I have. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Anybody that has any questions, just you can unmute yourself or put your name in there and we'll call on you. But to the points per possession real quick, first of all, like when did you start using that as a measurement? And then like what is your goal? And do the players know what your goal is?
Yeah, 2 years ago, Just Play has been the one I really go to as far as my analytics side of it. Synergy is great, but I feel like Just Play is a little more spot on, more for maybe the women's game. I think they maybe pay a little bit more attention to that. Synergy's got so much that they do. But points per possession, you know, you want to keep it in the positives of at least one or more on that, or else it's not worth doing for me in the points per possession. It's a 2-to-1 ratio every time. The 3-point as well. If we're scoring at 2, I'm happy. You know, that's a great stat that we look at.
Again, if you're scoring at what? If you're
2, like if your points per possession are like around the 2, like 1.8 to 2.2, somewhere around there, you're really efficient and effective on that side of it. So, do I pay attention a lot to the analytics? Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's part of the game. That's where we're growing. That's where we're going. But at the end of the day, I always tell my assistants, you know, trust your eyes. That's the most important thing, is to trust your eyes and what you're seeing out there too. I heavily rely on them. I don't even do the subbing. My assistants do the subbing. I let them do all that. So, you know, if they do the subbing, we lose, then I don't take the blame for it. I get to blame them for it. So that's how I look at it. But no, I'm really hands off. My assistants take timeouts all the time. You'll see me kind of just looking around, talking to referees, having conversations with them, just how is your day going? You know, I have a lot of trust in what my assistants do. And then at end of game stuff, you know, I like end of game situation. So I like taking the board for that. But for the most part, it's really my assistants that drive that stuff.
And so like the threes, you said a contested throw ahead or kick up contested 3, is that okay with you?
Yeah. So we do like shooting tests, as I'm sure a lot of you guys do. We do the red light, green light test, and we'll do the 2-minute test. If you're not in the green light and you're red and you're shooting it, then, you know, I don't really think I have to say anything. I think my teammates, my players will just tell them, like, what the are you doing? So it's not really me really doing that. It's my players. But at the end of the day, if my players are passing it to them on a 3 and they're shooting, that's also their fault too. You should be passing the ball. But they know it's very well documented. We have all their names as green lighters, yellow lighters, red lights. You know, majority of my guards this year are green lights, minus 2 players that didn't make the green light. My post players, one of them was a green lighter, the other one was yellow. So it's definitely we stat every practice. We put their stats up all the time so they understand, kind of where they stand. There's not much a conversation that I need to say to them. It's right there showing where your percentages are every day.
And these are practice percentages that make it green light?
Yeah. And then, every week, when you have an all-star SID that sends me everything, I just get to tell them before film, and I'll tell them their stats for the week, last overalls, and then I'll post it in the locker room so everyone can see where they're coming from. This eliminates a lot of the I play over you, I should be playing. It eliminates a lot of finger pointing and blame game. And then if it's really bad, if we kind of hear a little bit, then I'll just talk about it in front of the team in the huddle and just call them out on it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's not, and everyone's a winner, and not everyone gets a fair go at it. I think for me, I have lots of favorites on the team. I'm not going to ever say I don't have favorites on my team, but I also want to win too. So I'm not going to play you if you're not going to win me a game. So I think those conversations are healthy. I think they appreciate it. If you just hide from it, that's maybe why transfers. I don't know. I don't know why. I've been very fortunate that I haven't had one transfer out of my program that I haven't asked to leave. And so it's definitely not me. It's definitely my assistants that keep them here, and their teammates. So I'm very fortunate to have that with players staying. No one's transferred out of my program.
Hey, Timmer, this is Steve Yang. Thank you so much for joining on and doing this. I know there's a lot of different tests that people across the country can run for the red light, green light, yellow light, and all. But what do you do in particular? I'm sure there's a lot that you probably can do, but can you give us a couple or so?
Yeah, so the main one I do is the NBA test. It's the free layups. You gotta make 10 in a row left, 10 in a row right, around the world. All the way. It's so 2-minute start around the world, and then once you have to make everyone consistently. You can't miss. If you miss, you start over all the way around the world, and you're rebounding yourself. No one's helping you, and then you just shoot threes for the remainder of the time, and as many threes as you can get from any spot you want. And then if you're in the 80s or 80 plus makes, count by one, 80 plus makes, you're a green lighter. So I can send that to you. I actually have it. You're one of your teammates. You just mark it as they go, as they go down. And it's a formula they put together. And then once you make 80 plus, you're a green lighter, but you can also calculate your percentage. So if you made 80 or more, you're most likely going to be in the 40 percentile. But I had somebody get out of it so damn quick. Like she started shooting threes like super fast. And she actually turned into like a 20-something percentile. I'm like, oh yeah, I need to work on that. So, but it's good in that sense of just, it's not the end all. It's just a barometer and an understanding kind of where you're at. It's a pressure test too.
Yeah, definitely. Are players allowed to test themselves outside of practice?
Yep, they can come up to my office, grab the sheet of paper, go for the test, come back sweaty and everything, and then hand it back to me. Yeah. They can go at any time. They can run the test whenever they want because they want to beat each other.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are most of your 5-on-5? By the way, everybody wants your package. Everybody's putting that in the chat, just so you know. So hopefully you're willing to share that.
Yeah.
Are most of your 5-on-5 segments, are you still playing fast in transition? It's not like specific transition 5-on-5. This is that's just how you guys play, and you really do swallow your whistle.
Yeah. I mean, if you get really, say you think someone's dogging it, or you're just upset and you just kind of want to, kind of be a jerk in practice today, you can run 9-1-1 drills, and it's 5 times up and down the floor. They have to hit every basket under a certain time. And in order to achieve it, you got to basically make your first shot on everything. So I can send that to you if you feel like your team's dogging it. Just, hey, 9-1-1. And then they're not happy with you for the rest of practice. That's okay. I'm not here to be a favorite. So you can do those type of things. As far as 5-on-5, yes, I swallow my whistle. My staff has a very hard time with it for some reason. But they just need to learn to do that. Because you constantly want to correct and teach all the time. But free play, I feel like, is the best way to learn. Now, if they don't hear you, because we always talk about fitness, you should be able to hear our voices as they're running down the floor and make a correction immediately. If they don't make those corrections, then you can go on the side and run with us or whatever you need to do, because you clearly aren't in the shape we need you to be in. So we really try to mimic our voices more than the whistle, because in a game, if you ever watch my staff they feel like they're more animated than I am. And so, but they're constantly training the team to listen to their voices. So I prefer a voice versus a whistle. Now I'll have a whistle that I like to use. And if I'm on a whistle practice, then it's not a good practice. So you definitely there's definitely a need for the whistle. There's definitely a need to correct and not let them get too far away from being an and one superstar. So you definitely got to hone them in. But for the most part, I think you allow your kids to make the mistakes and correct afterwards. So we don't go up and down more than 3 times without stopping. So 3 times maximum. And then after that, it's a quick breather, a quick corrections on what we want, and then we go again. Now, if they don't do it again, I feel like you only have to tell them once. Maybe coaches think, oh, let's give them a chance 2 and 3. No, I'm a one-time chance person, and then we go to the line.
Got it. Coach Hood, do you want to ask your question?
Yes. How you doing? This is Coach Hood. I'm at UTSA. You went 8-3 down a stretch. What changed? Was it that the injuries you were talking about? Did someone come back healthy? But it seemed like you guys got on a roll and kind of, were playing your best basketball late in the season, which is what we all aspire to do.
Yeah, I think we lost 4 starters, and our best player walked away for personal reasons, and that hit us pretty hard. I think when you hit a lot of injuries, and right before conference started, we lost another starter. And so I think with injuries of such a strong role player or such a strong player in your team, it's hard to find your groove again, find your rhythm. I will give all the credit to my associate and my staff to they never talked about it or wavered with it or felt sorry for each other. I think we just constantly just stayed focused on the day, and we made our players step up. Hey, you complain about playing time. Well, you can't complain about playing time now. Like, you better step up and show your role. So I would say, just for me, I think in my staff, there's no real formula. It's just we didn't worry. We didn't feel sorry for ourselves. No one cared if we won or lost. People were excited to see us lose. Why not? We're picked to win the conference. And if we're going down, everyone's happy about it. So for us, it's just about no one gives a shit about us. Let's just focus on us. And so that's what we did. And we did start having some health issues get stronger. Our freshmen, Sophia Locandro and Jay Kadee, because the other 2 freshmen were out this season. They got stronger. They got in the weight room, they got and they got stronger. So they came on to the players wanted them to be. So I thought that was a big piece to it.
Thank you.
Real quick shout out to Coach Hood, who just had a brand new newborn baby. So
Oh, congrats.
that's Coach Hood.
Thanks. I
Congrats.
haven't slept a lot.
Last question, Coach Okada, you want to ask your question?
Hey, Tamara. Matt Okada, Cal Poly Pomona. I'm just curious. I know you made clear that the core of your program is play fast. Get your possessions up. Does that ever change if you feel you're playing a team that might be quicker and more athletic, or do you just kind of stick to your identity no matter what?
I'll stay on a whim here, and it's probably gonna sound like I have a big ego, but I don't think any team's faster than ours. We're never gonna face that. What we will face is slower, stronger, bigger teams. And so when that happens, we definitely need to play faster. I'll say this season, we were not fast. We didn't get to press. We didn't get to do anything we wanted to do. We actually walked the ball for the first time ever in my program. So yeah, you absolutely adjust and you play the best you can. I thought we definitely played 2 post players this year at the end of the season too, because I had no more guards to sub in. So a couple of my post players said they could be a guard. Yeah, that wasn't going to happen. One of them shoots 3s way over her head, and if she hits 1 out of 100, she thinks she can shoot 3. So that's not going to happen. So we just started to go to the traditional 3-out, 2-in stuff. So I agree. I love to play the fast game, but as a coach and as all of you know, you want something so bad, but you can't do it unless you have the players to do it. I'm no good coach. My players are the ones that make me look good. So unless they do what I ask them to do, and you aren't asking something that's unattainable, you'll be successful.
Awesome, Coach. Thank you so much. I know it's not easy because there's some of your competitors are on here.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're good, and they all beat me too. And I think I got losses from all of them this year.
But thank you so much for sharing. We appreciate it. And a round of applause for Coach Tamara. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That was awesome. You can feel Coach's passion. All right, we're going to get on to Coach Mike Peck. He's one of the true just winners in our industry. He's actually coached at Division I level for a long time, but if you guys don't know, he was at Findlay Prep for a 5-year period, and he won 3 national championships. I mean, I think that's great, but most importantly, he was 33-0 one season, so he went undefeated one year. After that, he coached in the NBA, which is now the G League, but he was the NBA D League at the time, the Idaho Stampede, and he's currently the associate head coach at UTSA. So, Coach Peck, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Steve, thank you, Coach Inoue. Appreciate your time and your energy. Golly, I tell you what, I was ready to start standing up and getting loose and moving around during your talk, man. I would love to see your preseason, because I guarantee you a question I didn't have to ask, I was going to ask, is the value you put on conditioning. And I can only imagine that's one of your non-negotiables, that your players got to be in shape for obvious reasons. But that's one area that I'm very, very passionate about. So I just I'll start out here. Let me share my screen with you. Let's see. Okay. All right. Just again, like the bottom says, there's 100 different ways to skin a cat. There's no one way that's right or wrong. It's what's best and what fits you. Just some quick things this morning as I was thinking about this that I wanted to write down that I think are very important in terms of, running your own program or sliding over, like they say, 12 inches and taking that seat is, first and foremost, you got to be authentic. You got to be you. The players know when you are, when you're not. I'm a big Don Meyer guy. If you guys want to do some search, Google search, look up all his stuff. Be who you are, because if you ain't who you is who you ain't. And you got to be you. You can take things from certain people and programs, but at the end of the day, it's got to be you. It's got to fit your personality. It's got to be your demeanor, because the players will sniff that out in a second, and that will hurt you, I think, in terms of your credibility. Number 2, you got to know your craft. And I think for me, it was, going into this 24, 25 years ago in coaching, is you've got to be able to do it all. There's guys that have just focused in on the recruiting component of it. There's guys that have, just immersed themselves in clinics and notes and being able to coach on the floor. I do believe you got to be able to do it all, because it's important. When you slide over every seat as an assistant and then to the head coach, that's what you're doing. You may not be doing as much in certain areas, but you're managing guys that are. Number 3, I think early on, this is, establish your non-negotiables from day one, and it's got to be known, and you've got to be passionate about those things. Just listening to Coach Inoue talk, I can clearly tell you, I can probably list, and again, I think your non-negotiables, I think keep it at 3 or 4. I don't think you can have a list of 7 or 8, because then you start to lose emphasis when you're talking about those things on a day-to-day basis in your practices with your players. But you've got to have those. You got non-negotiables, and in a short amount of time after you are with your team, your players should know what those are without having to state those and having them written down on a wall or in a notebook. They should just know They should be able to recite those and tell anybody who asks them, hey, what are a couple of things that your coach is passionate about that are just areas that are not up for debate. Number 4, let your core values and principles guide you. Everybody's got different core values and principles. I'm not here to sit on a soapbox, but I just know how we've done it. Coming from the tree I've come from, I've been very fortunate. Especially with a coach like Coach Kruger, and with Steve Henson. Midwest guys and good people, solid people that are honest, not going to lie, not going to cheat. I think, and I feel, we believe we do things the right way, and we always try to do the right thing. Trust your gut and your instinct, but don't ignore the numbers. Coach Hood on our staff, he's our numbers guy. He's going to put numbers to everything, which I think is phenomenal. It's great. It's helped me a lot. I think it's important. I think that's where the game is at. When I was with Portland, we had one guy that was on that staff. I'm not kidding you. He was probably about 5'6", a Jewish kid with glasses that maybe weighed $120. And Coach Stotts brought him in every meeting, and he had the floor the last 5 to 10 minutes for us to ask him questions, and he knew his numbers. It was, I think, a year and a half with Portland, and then the Sixers swooped him up, paid him a boatload of money. I don't even know where he's at now, but that's what he did. He would watch guys play pickup. He watched all these games. He knew the numbers back and forth, and that dictated philosophically what Coach Stotts did in certain areas in defense, especially with pick and roll. So, but at the same time, I do believe you got to trust your gut and your instinct. If you've played the game, you've been around the game enough, there are some things that you just feel, that you just know and you feel. And there are times when, you don't have time in games for adjustments and in practice to change it. You got to go with your gut and what you feel and your instincts. 6, listen. There's a big difference. There's listen versus hearing. We all hear a lot of things, but you got to listen. Be a good listener. I think one of the biggest compliments Coach Kruger paid to me was, he used the term, he had a great package of awareness. That's because I didn't talk much, but I listened. And I think that's when you can learn a lot. I do read, but I'm not a huge reader where I'm just rifling through books. But one thing I do is I listen. I do listen, because I think you can gain a lot. So if somebody that you're talking to reads a lot and they're telling you and talking, you can pick up a lot of what they read. 7, be decisive. Be fair and be reasonable, but you got to be decisive. You can't, again, players sense that. You got to stand firm. If it's something that you need time to talk to your staff about or with your staff about to make a decision on, that's understandable. But when you do, your decision, your final say, it has to be decisive, and it has to be firm, and it has to be known, because your players will sniff through that in a second. 8, I love this one. Don't compromise. Compromise is the first sign of destruction. Those years I had at Finley with all those great teams, there's one specific time in 2011 that stands out. It was our worst season. We were 28-4. We lost in the first round of the national championships, and I compromised, and I regret it. And I look back, but I learned from it. It was the only thing that I look back. I had a player that was McDonald's All-American. I failed to reach that individual effectively the way I maybe could have or should have. And I should have probably had him sit on the bench to help him in his future. And it would have helped our team. But we had a big game the next game, and I felt we needed him. And instead of disciplining him like I normally would have or should have, I didn't. And we ended up losing the game anyway, and it made for the worst season we had. So number 9, be organized. Again, like Coach Inouye said, she's got a packet. She's going to send it out. She's not going to have her staff, oh gosh, do they want this packet, put it together now. She's got that. It's ready to go. It's just a matter of making copies or, attaching it in an email and sending it. But that's important, being organized, having things down on paper, in a file, in a notebook. That's one thing I always tell our young managers, GAs and stuff. Where's your notebook? You're starting to collect things. You want to be a coach. Where's your stuff? Let me see your stuff. But that's a big part of it. Number 10, it's a business, but you got to be professional. You got to be a professional. You got to understand the business part of it. There's elements of it that are cold and that aren't all warm and fuzzy. And that's how it is. And you got to handle it that way. You got to you got to understand, and hopefully your core values and your principles, your perspective and faith all come into that. So those are just quick, some 10 things I wanted to share with you there as we kind of get going. One thing that building a program, here's what I did. And I'm a big, let me get this. There we go. Put things on writing. I would say for a lot of young guys, if there's young guys on this call, if you're in those initial positions as a GA, a video guy or whatever, that's when you have time, so take and use that time and spend time putting things in writing, collecting things, putting things in notebooks and organizing yourself. Because as you move down the line and you move up, the less and less time you have. You're not going to have time to do those things. And that's one of the things that I did, because I like doing it. Now I have to find time and make time to do those things, which I do just because that's how my mind works. So I like to put things down and print and writing because it helps me organize my thoughts and it gives a sense of organization for our program. So this is one thing that I did. I think Chad Buchanan, who's now the GM with the Indiana Pacers, who was the director of college scouting with the Trailblazers when I was there. I worked closely with him during my 2 years. And he actually asked for this when he went to the Pacers. He said, hey, could you send me what you talked about? And I used to call it Blueprint for Success. Well, I don't know why I changed it, but I just kind of like the plan, process, and progression. Everything I believe in is a progression. You got to crawl before you can walk before you can run. You start things and you progress and then you can start adding things. You can't just go to the end result and expect to be great at it. But this is something that we'd go over with our players just so they had an understanding of my mindset and our approach to every season. So they knew where we were coming from. This is important for your staff. It gives them a better idea. I'll just kind of go through it. It's basically 5 phases, and it just breaks them down from a timing standpoint. Phase 1, acclimation. First day of classes or school when they get on campus, and to the day before, phase 2. This is the least demanding. This is the least, hands-on that you'll be as a staff. But it's really important because I think during this phase, you want guys to get, like it says, acclimated for their new environment, especially freshmen or transfers are coming in, getting a feel for campus, classes, where they're at, what path they take, where do I park, just kind of timing of their day. What's going to be my routine normally on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday when my classes are this, Tuesday, Thursday, this, just kind of, managing their time, going through the lines of communication with your trainer, your staff, your assistants, your head coach, your teammates, what have you. But also, that's when, since there's not that constant demand, invest in relationships with your teammates. That's where you should be spending time off the floor, outside of the arena, whether you're grabbing lunch with them, you're going up to Chipotle, grabbing dinner, whatever it is, that informal time where they're starting to bond without you dictating that and choreographing that. I think that's very, very important. Then we move into phase 2. It's first day of preseason conditioning to actually in season. When you get into in season or phase 3, this is, to me, this was my phase. This was it for me. This is the most demanding phase. This is the phase that it's a non-negotiable. It's an area that's it's everything to me. It's going to test and challenge them mentally and physically. It's going to be difficult for some. It's going to push them to limits beyond what they've normally gone and experienced. It's exactly what it is. It's conditioning. I'm big. Fatigue makes cowards of us all. Fatigue can lead to compromise. Compromise is the first sign of destruction. If you think about it, like you take an infant. When an infant cries, they're hungry or tired. Nothing else matters to them except their hunger and their tiredness or fatigue. It doesn't matter what's going on. That's why they cry, because they cannot get past that. One thing, two famous things, just any players that have ever played for me that will know, get past tired, and move faster. If I can play my 5 best players longer than you can play your best players, I got a better chance of winning, I think, in my opinion. It affects decisions when guys get tired. They want to take shortcuts. It's just it's just human nature. So you've got to be in unbelievable physical shape. And this time is so critical for everything we do going past this. Objectives, obviously, it's physical. And not just physical, it's mental. You know, we used to do that early morning stuff and feel, oh yeah, we're getting up at 5 a.m. Well, you know, we didn't do that just to say we did it. We did it. It was more of a mental thing, because now when you lined up against your opponent, look, I don't know what you did during your preseason and your conditioning, but I know this: you didn't do more than me. You may have done as much, and it may have been hard, but it wasn't more than me. So by the end of the, first half and going into the late second half, they're spent. We're not. Phase 3, kind of the week of the first game into championship phase. I'll get into that. It's basically an extension of our preparation. Shift focus into team preparation and team competitiveness. Here's areas that we'll focus on. Obviously, it's your practices. What are you doing in your practices? Kind of those lists. That's kind of how I would break down practice. My big thing was, defense first. We would hit defense first because I wanted our guys to know defense was a priority. 1, you're going to be in unbelievable shape. And 2, you're going to guard. You're going to guard or you're not going to play. It'll be the next man up. And so that's what the emphasis was. We'd go through, and I always believe, let's get the hard stuff first, and then we'll get to the fun stuff. And that's kind of how we broke down practices, some defensive stuff, some skill work. Skill work was every day. Most guys I know take that out. And at the college level, it's harder. It's different. One thing I've learned is that time constraint, those hours per week, the Cara and the Rara, all that crap, you got to be locked in. So you've got to be efficient in practice. And there's some stuff you can't do it all the time. But I'm a big fan of skill work. Shots, guys got to get shots. You encourage them to do it on their own. But if you don't build in shooting in practices, some guys might not be getting it in, and that's on them. Offense, team offensive execution, system reps in terms of what we do overall, putting in the hole. Maybe that's going up and down, 5-on-5 controlled or what have you. And then specific game situations, end the clock, end the game, end a half, baseline out of bounds, all that stuff. Here, phase 3, constant emphasis on team. Everything is team. Objectives, sacrifice, give completely, act and speak with team in mind first, support each other, motivate each other, praise, teach each other, coach each other. A player-led team is ultimately what you want and what you need. When you don't have to police it and it's self-policing, you got a chance to be pretty darn good. I'm just telling you, because when you got to do that, so I used to tell our guys, if we have to deal with discipline issues and talk about motivating and stuff, you know what we're not talking about? We're not talking about preparing and beating Old Dominion on Friday. That's taken away from what we need to be doing as a team, because our time is limited and it's valuable. So if we have to talk about a discipline issue with this guy or getting you guys to practice or play harder, we're not spending time thinking about beating Old Dominion on Friday. That's a problem. That's on them. Learn and accept and embrace your role. Maintain energy and enthusiasm. Compete every day. Compete. I know Coach Inouye said, she made a great point where she posts things in the locker room. I think one of the things I used to call Tristan Thompson, Corey Joseph after every season and say, hey, what were things that were good that you liked that worked when you were here with us at Findlay that these new guys need to embrace and buy into? And they say, Coach, whatever you do, I'm just saying, winners and losers. Winners and losers. In practice, drills, winners and losers. Compete on everything. And we did. In preseason sprints, we charted every sprint, who won it, and that day and that afternoon, it was posted in the locker room. You could say what you want. That could be discouraging. You know what? Produce. Play and produce. That's a fact. You win or you lose. That's life. And that's what they needed to know from day one. We're going to compete at a high level. Winning is important. I also think it's a byproduct. Your attitude, effort, and your execution, playing together for each other, playing hard, Phase 4, championship phase, mid-season, and then into the completion of postseason play. That championship mindset. Hopefully our preparation, that was the intent. How we go so hard and we prepare and emphasize all those things. You're a championship program. Your culture becomes that and embraces that, and it accepts and tolerates nothing less. So phase 4 is that, it's just it's a big thing in terms of, getting actually and accomplishing that championship level. I always look for signs and indications of reaching that phase. When practices and game effort have maintained a high level of intensity, culture has evolved, like I said, where expectations are high and substandard performance effort not tolerated within the group. They're policing and coaching themselves. Guys are getting on themselves when somebody's not going hard. Sacrifice, selflessness, all those things that you see there. And then postseason, some guys might say this is the easiest part of it next to the acclimation, and it is. That's one area. This is an area that I would basically, you'd go from 100 miles an hour and you just basically take your foot off the gas and you're coasting into a postseason. Not to say it's not important, but that's when we got to rest and we got to recover, and it's regrouping. A lot of that stuff is on them. They got to put the time in the gym. We'll still have some organized workouts, individual workouts and stuff, but it's going to be a lot less demanding. I was always a lot more, I won't say laid back, but I wasn't quite as vocal, energized and passionate and just really on them about stuff during the postseason, just because I felt that was a little bit more their time. And after having gone through the first 4 phases and a whole season, it's amazing what you see. They just kind of have become what you ultimately wanted them to become. And then that's when it just carries over. So if anybody wants that, I have no problem sharing that and giving that to you. I think that's big in sharing stuff and giving stuff out. It's nothing that I didn't reinvent the wheel. So let's see.
Coach Peck, can
Yep.
Coach Santos wants to ask you a question.
Absolutely. Coach, this is for Coach Tamara too. Two-part question.
Yep.
Do you guys consider yourselves offensive or defensive coaches? And then part 2 is what is a drill that's a staple for you to teach out of, and why?
Coach Inui, you want to go ahead and?
Sure, I can go first. I was probably all defensive as a player, and then my first part in Australia, all defensive. But then I thought it was pretty boring, so I just switched over to be offensive only. I love offense. I think it's why players play. So I started doing that. So then I just made sure that my assistants love defense.
Yep. I'm probably more of a defensive guy. And have been, but obviously going with Portland in the D League at that time, it was fun because at that level, defense at the college level is I think over half of its toughness. If your guys are tough, you can demand and you can really get it out of them, and you can be very competitive in a good team. I've seen a lot of college teams that offensively, in my opinion, I think it's just bad offense. I don't like what they do. I don't think they're very good, but they're pretty good because they're tough, man. And those dudes guard and they play hard. So that's something I think is good. And I think that's preparation. And, mental toughness, physical toughness is something you can demand and get out of guys as long as you got the right guys that fit you. But then it was fun going up to Portland. Stotts is great offensively. He had Dame and CJ to work with, and I still use a lot of his stuff, or have used a lot of his stuff, and it's fun. And Coach Kruger's a big offensive guy as well, X's and O's that way. So, but I'm more defensive minded just because it's a grittier, tougher segment of it.
Yeah, and Coach Peck, like I know you mentioned, to everyone, all the young coaches about, taking the time to put together your philosophy. How much and how often do you edit those things on your end? And what other things do you have documented? Like, do you have your offense broken down, your defense, how to incorporate team culture, all the different things that go with a program or with a team? Like, do you have all those things documented for you to kind of go back to or edit?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, I always refer to it still. I was fortunate to have played for a guy who was really into that. He was a Meyer guy. He was almost like one of Don Meyer's sons, actually, and just But anyway, he was big into that, and he, like I always had Finley out of a notebook, and we had a team manual, so to speak, where now people would say it's a cover your ass document. But I just believed in having it because you can always refer to it. Here's how we travel. Here's how we practice. Here's what's expected academically. It's a 37-page manual, and I've tweaked it some because you have to add a social media segment now to it. But we've always had that and believed in that. In terms of players, terminology. One thing before players we ever started in that acclimation phase, they'd get sheets. Here's our terminology. Once we hit the court, I don't have time to explain to you where the slot is. You got to know where the slot is. You know what I mean? You got to understand what terminology we're using and what is the gap? What does that mean? Where am I at position-wise? So we'd hand them that. When they hit the court for a first practice, I'm not taking 5 to 6 seconds explaining it to Johnny because he should know that. There's some things that are expected. They got to do their homework a little bit. It wasn't hard, but it was just knowing our language. And I think that's a huge part of it. I have all that stuff. When I left the D League, that was all I had. I sat with our one volunteer coach, and he put it all together and stuff, and certain actions, that he diagrammed and defensively. So I've got all that stuff. I've got binders in my office on shelves and above my desk and all that stuff. So I keep all that stuff. I think that's, it helps me organize my thoughts. Some guys can do it without. Some guys are brilliant without needing all that stuff, and they can do scratch, sticky notes daily and throw them out and do them the next day. And that's fine. It's just, that doesn't work for me. I need to be more organized and have lists and things that I can refer back to on that. One thing I stole from Lou Holtz a while ago, and maybe more coaches, what's important now, in terms of running a program and stuff. I think number one, there's real concern. One, staff. You got your staff is everything to you. It's everything. I know when Coach Henson called, to me it was less than 1/10 of a second that I was going with him. I mean, 3 things I asked: do I know him? Do I like him? Do I respect him? Bang, all 3. Check, check, check. You're lucky nowadays in the college game if you can get one of those 3. Or 2 of those 3. And then you got to kind of, okay, I don't know him, but I kind of like him, and I respect him because he won. So you got to do it. When you get all 3 of those, boom. And same thing with your staff. I don't have one thing that I worry about sometimes when I wait, because I want to be a head coach again. It's like, I don't have guys on ready. I'm a small circle. I'm not a big social guy, but I don't have guys on ready that I'm just like, bang. I know a few guys that I'd talk to if I was putting together a staff, but nothing that I'm like definitive. I got my former coach to be the first one I'd call, just because he's been around, and I think he'd be great for me to lean on in terms of, having that experience. Outside of that, I don't have definitive guys, but those are things I'm going to know. Do I know you? Do I like you? Do I respect you? And then recruiting, players. Everybody says it's about players. It is, but it's about players that fit you. And you got to understand, as an assistant coach, players that fit your head coach and how he is and the style of play, and then putting together pieces. I know some guys just want, hey, just give me the best players. Well, we want pieces. You got to have point guards, number one, then you got your wings, and we play a 4-out, 1 in. We're not as concerned and consumed with our 5-man being a true post, because we're not going to throw in the post. I don't want guys that are slow. Just got to be able to catch and got to be able to think the game. You got to have a little toughness. So that's huge. And then X's and O's. Plan, teach, adjust, grow, and evolve. You got to know your craft. You got to know how to teach. You got to know how to coach, because you're going to get that opportunity. And I know a lot of assistants, you get that. You've got 30 seconds to get your team or the team into a drill. You better know what you're saying, and you better know how to communicate it, because your players, you get one chance. And then you know what you are? You're the locker room joke. They're mocking and mimicking you in the locker room and laughing at you. And when you got a scouting report to go over, you might have 3 or 4 guys that aren't paying attention. Because if you're not precise and you don't know how to communicate it, you're going to lose dudes, and you don't want that. That's credibility, and the players are the ones that you need to get the credibility from.
Coach, I got a quick question, if you don't
Yep.
mind. Brian
Yep.
Burton. First of all, great job. Love all the information, the details, the story. You've had a heck of a career, so salute to you for that. But I wanted to ask, when you talked about just now and answering that question, you mentioned terminology sheet, which is important.
Yep.
Definitely, I work for Jim Boylan. He was all about that, and other guys I work for. I'm curious, when you said you didn't have time to teach it to them on the floor, do you have more of a classroom setting where they get that information, or is it more just they're supposed to kind of get it on their own from diagram, or how do you infuse the content of your terminology sheet to them to where they really understand it?
That's a great question. You know, we did both at Finley. We were fortunate. We used to have we'd have a class time that was like we called life skills. So we would get that as a classroom time, kind of like in the state of Texas. You know, they have that basketball period
Yeah,
that they can do in addition to practice. That was well, we'd take them in the classroom and we would go over that stuff and we would ask them, okay, what, you know, why don't you go up the board, diagram, whatever, and, you know, show me where the slot is, you know, show me where the short corner or the dunker spot, you know, I mean, that's stuff that they had to know, but we would give it to them. But we would, you know, basically it's like if we're teachers, coaches, teachers, that's our classroom. The court's our classroom, you know, but there's a lot of things that apply in your normal classes that are the same. So we did both in that regard. One last thing I just want to share, then open it up for whatever you guys want to hear about. I was going through a lot of things, and I think this, not 1 through 7, that was something I forget who I was talking to, but the quote at the bottom, I just think is so, it just struck me. And it, sometimes you go back if you document everything you do and you write things down and stuff, I go back and I look at it and I'm like, I wrote that? Where did I get that from? I must have stole that. But there's some stuff that I kind of get excited about because I'm like, golly, I kind of sound like I know what the hell I'm talking about sometimes because you forget. But it's winning at a championship level is far from guaranteed and is not easy. And this, I know what this was because this was at Finley. Those guys that came in after guys that maybe had great seasons and careers with us, they just thought it was going to happen. So it used to make me mad. And I said, so this is why I came up with this. It's not guaranteed and it's not easy. It can't be passed on with a saying or a gesture. It must be worked for and valued through the establishment of a culture that must be embraced and adhered to by all of its members, past, present, and future. Bang. That just summed it all up. You guys are not entitled to anything. You think you've done something. You haven't. The guys on the wall have done it. And that's the reason you got the best of the gear, this nice locker room and all that. You haven't done anything yet. You know, so it keeps things in perspective, and it kind of keeps them in their place before they get too much of an ego. And so I wanted to share that with you guys. All right, I'll open it up. Anything you guys want to talk about or ask me, go ahead and fire away.
Coach, the back to like you're talking about hiring a staff, and we got a lot of people on here who are trying to maneuver their way through this business or trying to get into the college coaching. Like, what, I know you said, do I know them? Do I like them? Do I respect them? How can somebody make an impact on you and possibly get hired by you or work with you?
Yep. Great question. And anybody that wants to email me, go ahead. It's mike.peck@utsa.edu. mike.peck@utsa.edu. Email me. There's a great thing that I did. I have a lot of kids, you know, or GAs that want to be GAs that email us every year. Everybody gets that. And so I finally was like, golly, I like to respond to people too via email. I know a lot of people just ignore some of that stuff. If it's personally sent to me, I'm going to respond to it just because to me, that's important. You know, if he put the time in to email me, then I'm going to give him a response. Well, I was doing like individual responses to all of them. And I kept saying the same thing over and over. And I was like, I got to put together. So I put together 13 bullet points for young guys trying to break into the business. I think it's one of the best things I put together. It's pretty concise and clear. But if you really want to, okay, here's 13 things that you need to think about ask yourself and understand and realize. And it's really good. It's not anything, again, I didn't reinvent the wheel. It's stuff that you probably all heard before, but I put it together. That's got great points. But my big thing is one of those things is invest in real, genuine, and authentic relationships. This is a society that's a microwave society. Everybody says, uses the term, oh, that's my guy. Look, I've got 3 guys that I say are my guy. None of them coach. One's my college teammate, one's my brother-in-law, and one's a high school teammate. And we got a text string that we text every day. Those are my guys because they know more about me than anybody on this screen, and they know more about anybody, you know. So my thing in that is don't networking is, I hate using that word, but people say network. Look, you're not going to meet somebody and that automatically, you may click and they may like you and you may like them and get into a good conversation, but that relationship isn't going to bear fruit tomorrow necessarily. Now it might. You can go buy a scratch off lottery ticket and win $100,000, but there's a lot of guys that buy those and don't win versus the guys that do and win. So know this, when you network, invest the time in building a genuine relationship over the course of time and stay in contact. Nurture that relationship. You know, there are some guys that you're going to gravitate towards that you like more. Okay, then nurture and gravitate towards those relationships as opposed to somebody I don't have a lot in common with them. That might be kind of a distant connection then. That might bear fruit in 6 months. It might bear fruit in 4 years. It may never bear fruit. But there's a connection. Look, in this profession, I'm going to tell you a great story. There was a Power 5 assistant spot open on the West Coast in the Pac-12. This was when I was, maybe it was just finishing up in the G League. And I was like, I heard the 2 things. He wanted to recruit the West Coast. It was important for that position. Wanted to recruit the West Coast and wanted to go into Canada. I'm like, oh my gosh, kidding me? I've been on the West Coast. You know, I'm familiar with the West Coast. In Canada, golly, we've had some pretty good players from there. So it's a no-brainer. Plus, Coach Kruger knew the head coach. One of the assistants I worked for at UNLV knew one of the assistants on there. So I was like, oh, I had like 15 calls go into him. And Coach Kruger was going to be with him on the Nike trip and was going to talk to him. I had it all lined up. I was like, oh, this is, I'm not saying this is easy, but I'll get an opportunity, I think, to speak with him. And I did. He called me and we had a conversation. Long story short, didn't happen. But that was, you know, over the course of a week, I had choreographed and organized calls going into him and people plugging me, people that were actually, that could help you in that role as an assistant, guys that were directly tied to players from recruiting and programs. And I was like, oh man, long story short, didn't happen. You know, I get it. So UTSA, I'm at home. After the G League, I took a year off. Then I got back in because I wanted to get back in the college level. Went to Santa Clara for a year. I knew that was going to be a one and done just because of the situation. I could see it from afar what was going down, but I just needed to get back in. Got back in. We're done. Sure enough, we get let go or whatever. I get back home to Vegas with my family. I'm literally in my boxers and haven't showered for a couple days because I'm just spending time with the family, doing normal stuff. And Henson, who we worked together at UNLV with Coach Kruger and maintained a relationship for over 12, 15 years, he calls me. He goes, hey, this is when Oklahoma had Buddy Hield and they were going to the Final Four. He goes, hey, this is what's going down. He thought he was going to, Arkansas State. I'm like, Jonesboro, Arkansas. My wife's from the South. She knows. I used to rodeo Jonesboro. Like, oh my God, there's nothing there. I was like, hey, whatever. That didn't happen. Next thing, he calls me again. Hey, it's going to be Stephen F. UTSA. I'm interviewing first at UTSA. He goes, I'm not, I think they're going to offer. If they do, all right, just let me know. Calls back. Next day, boom, done. The whole time, I had not one call go into him. I didn't do anything. I didn't send a thing to him. I was in my boxers and hadn't showered. And he offers me a job and he says, what do you need? And then he not only offers me a job, he says, what are your terms? Well, I want to be a head coach again, so I think the associate head coach title is important. I'm not into titles, but I know it's important from a perception standpoint. Okay, let me check with Lynn, our AD, first. And okay, good. Okay, what are you looking at salary? Well, here he sends me the thing. Here's the pool for assistants. He goes, just tell me what you want, and then we'll divide the rest up for the other guys. Are you kidding me? So you're going to let me tell you my title, and then you're basically going to let me dictate my salary. I mean, come on. And I'm at all this time unshowered in my boxers. That's how it works. That's how the profession works. And you know, there's no rhyme or reason. You think you might have an in. Oh yeah, this is the one that's going to have. Yeah, I've been there, done that. Nope. And then the one I'm not even really trying or working or putting any real effort into, and bang, done. So email me if you want that 13 points. I think they're great points. And then reach out to me. And if anybody wants to have a conversation with me, take my number down too, my cell number, 210-214-2513. That is my cell. I only have one cell. I'm not a 2-cell guy. And don't think that people always say, oh my God, I'm sorry to bother you. I know you're busy. No, I'm not. You know what I mean? Right now I got a t-shirt on, but I am in my boxers, FYI. So just don't hesitate to reach out. I spent 2.5 hours on the phone with a 20-year-old kid from the East Coast yesterday. 2.5 hours. I just think he's great. He's a numbers guy from a recruiting standpoint, and we clicked. Something about it, we clicked. 2.5 hours. I wanted to know what he wants, because he wants to get into this, and I wanted to tell him what I want and being able to lean on him. And for some reason in the future, I just think he's a guy, if he sticks with it and he pays his dues, quote unquote, he's a guy I would put in my drawer on a short list, which I don't really have many of those. So,
Hey, Mike, this is Steve Yang.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I want to say thank you to you and Tamara. You guys are great and amazing. I wish we can be here for more hours. I think a lot of us might agree with that, but you guys were both amazing. I want to say one thing. I believe I heard it right. You said you guys were 28-4, but that was your worst season. I thought that was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us on the screen might want a 28-4 record. I know definitely we would. But you know, it goes a lot to say about you and what your expectations are, not just on the court but off the court, and what you hold true to yourself. So that's
Yep.
pretty awesome. I got a question for you and Tamara, both of you guys. Do you guys put a lot of emphasis, or do you guys give your players any type of say into how you want your program to kind of run in regards to, I know there's some non-negotiables and all that too, but do you guys also give your players some that they can kind of say, hey, coach, I want some non-negotiables regarding the staff, you know?
Tamara?
Staff, I would say not really. Like, they'll meet them, but then at the end of the day, they're still kids. Like, I mean, as much as we want to empower them and grow them and teach and educate, at the end of the day, they still are kids. And you'd hope to, through the experience of what my coaches are mentors, as well as myself, to teach them lessons in life as they go through I only have them for a small time of 4 years. And so, yes, I am a good listener, and so is my staff. We listen, we communicate, we explain, and there's compromises on an earned status. So, for example, Lauren Psyche, my point guard, she wanted more on balls, you know, and I was like, we don't, you know, but she wanted to show me in practice that she can really help us in on balls. And so I gave her that shot in practice, and we worked at it and saw a lot of things, and it worked out in a good favor, especially with the injuries, because we slowed things down. It worked out really well for us. But that's like a basketball point. Yes. If you're talking about like decisions that I make with my staff, no, absolutely not.
Yep. I'm with you on that. My wife and I got in a heated conversation the other night. She's one of those, another book, here's real quick, not to get sidetracked. Another book, my favorite book, Making the Core by Thomas E. Ricks. Quick read, great read. It'll give you a great insight. Everybody wants to, this is a society at a time and a generation, everything gets explained. Well, you know what? There's some things in some areas I'm not, you know, we tell guys they want to know the why. Okay. Yeah. But there are some areas, don't go there with me. You know, my son at 3 years old wanted to eat ice cream for dinner. That ain't happening. Well, you got to explain to him, no, I don't. No, I don't. You know why? Because I'm an adult and I know that that's not good. So you know what? No, that's not happening. You know, there's just certain areas that you understand, but I do believe in ownership. You know, I do believe that it's a player-led team, but you got to give them some areas. You know, for example, they'd be like in game. You know, I remember in the G League, in the D League, I learned this. You know, when things are getting out of hand in a game, you know, shit, I don't know what to say to these guys when we got to call timeout. I don't know what to say. So, you know, here's what I did. I'd get the board and I'd write 1 and then 2. And I'd say, okay, what do you guys need from us right now? What do you need from us right now? Let's give me 2 things that we can help you with right now. You know, so, you know, hey, close game. What do you guys, we played zone and man, you sit there with your staff. Hey, what do we do? Should we go back to zone? It worked. It was good. Well, players in timeout. Hey, what are you guys most comfortable with right now? We're thinking maybe zone. What? No. Let's stay, man. We got them right. You know. So it's a little bit of give and take in that regard, but there are just, again, boundaries in certain areas where they should know they're not even going to toe the line, because that's an area they know they're just going to light a fuse with me, and it's not going to be good.
Coach, when you talk about going 12 inches to become a head coach, and then you've gone back the other way, like to become an assistant or associate head coach, what, like, is it a different mentality? Like, how does it work? How do you feel working with Coach Hans? I mean, how's that been?
I loved it. The time after 7 years of being a head coach, and Tamara might be going through this or experiencing, being a head coach is lonely. It can be a very lonely spot. Everything, you know, it's your final say, your call. You don't have the same relationship and camaraderie with your staff as you do when you're an assistant. Because let's face it, when you're a head coach, when, you know, you meet and you guys, you know, you like your staff and you enjoy each other, but then when you go and do your thing, I knew my staff was bitching about me. I knew they were saying shit and they were probably mocking me or whatever. That's just the nature of it. You know, that's but so at the time for me, I loved going back into the role I'm in, because after 7 years, you don't sleep a lot. And the minute you wake up, that's the first thing that's on your mind is your team and your program. You know, what are they doing? What are they doing? What do we need to do? What can we do? What should I do? What am I supposed to do? Okay, we got this. You just don't, you're never off. You're never off. And for me, going back and being with Steve, one, like him, know him, respect him, that made it great. So philosophically, we're kind of on the same page. So that, to me, it was like I could kind of pull the plug a lot in terms of having it all on your shoulders. And then you could go back, and the camaraderie with the staff and your relationship with the players was different. And it could be, you could enjoy it more and have a little bit more fun because it wasn't so intense and it wasn't just on you. So I've loved it. But now, again, I'm right at that stage. I still love it and always will, but I do have that itch again to move over.
It's so funny. I actually were laughing about that because it is. It's very lonely at the top. Everyone thinks that they want it. I love it, but it is lonely. And assistant coaches and associates, and I was one myself. It just seems so easy just to make a decision like, coach, just do this, do that, you know. And when you're in that seat, it all lies on you. The losses don't go on their records; it goes on mine. And decisions on administration goes on you. So it is. It's definitely a collaboration, but assistants cannot be upset with the decision you make. They have to understand that it is, at the end of the day, yours. I will echo a little bit what Mike said. You know, being an assistant is great. I absolutely loved it. I learned so much from Mark Track, who's he allowed me to do a lot. And I think that's why I do what I do with my assistants. One thing I will say though, is be careful. Don't overstep and be loyal in that sense of don't job hunt. I think the best story Mike shared was he was in his boxers and he got a job. The more you seek and the more you hunt, the less likely I believe you're going to get hired. You know, the timing will happen and it'll always be right. I don't think hunting all the time is a good thing. People who want you will call you. And I think there are a certain amount of people that can call me for jobs that, that I would listen to, but majority of calls that I do receive, and I'm respectful and I always take them. But I do think that your time will come. It always will. If you're doing your job and you're doing a good job at it, your time will come. One of the better books that, I'll throw out books all day long, is Chop Wood, Carry Water. If you've ever read that book, read that book. It's just buying your time and staying to the course. There are good people in this business, and you want to work for those good people.
Yep.
I just was, thanks, Coach Tanner. Coach Peck, actually, I was getting impatient like 4 years ago, same deal. And I think that might have been the first time I approached you and talked to you. And I just remember you kind of calmed me down and told me a story similar to what you told today. But it's hard. It's hard, Coach Tanner, to stay patient because we got a lot of movers and shakers here. They want to, but you're right. It does happen when the timing's right.
Prepared versus ready. Now you should be preparing. Be prepared, because when that time comes, you just don't know it. Our profession, as you all know, is so crazy. Tomorrow, there could be 8 of us on this deal right now that are in different spots. Somebody as a head coach across the country decides to get behind the wheel after drinking and boom, loses his job. Guess what happens? There's movement. We all know how that goes. So you just never know. And and again, it's hard. I know it's hard. Anybody ever seen that? You guys seen that movie, Any Given Sunday?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the old movie. I tell you a story. It was after my 3rd year as the video guy at UNLV. And I was a coach. I remember telling Coach Kruger, I'm a coach doing the video stuff and I don't have a problem with it. I'm not a video guy trying to be a coach, because I already had experience at D2 level as an assistant and stuff. And he was great with that. He respected that, brought me in the fold. But I didn't want to get pigeonholed in that role, and I was ready for the next thing. And I knew it was not taking its toll, but it was hard because you weren't getting paid anything and you're putting in all these hours and stuff. And I had a wife and a child at the time. And I remember coming home and telling my wife, I said, hey, if you want me to do something else so I could be around more, I'll do that. And unlike the wife in that movie, Any Given Sunday, when the quarterback came to her and he was getting injured and he was old and he's like, I'm going to retire. And she MF'd him and said, no effing way you are the effing quarterback. No. And basically just was like, that's not an option. My wife was very much more encouraging and said, no, I think we're right there. I think it's going to break. Just, stay, which was great for me. But it was funny because it was kind of like, it was hard for me because I'd been an assistant and I was doing that. And if you love it enough, you'll pay the price. You're willing to pay what it costs.
I wish I didn't love it as much. You're right.
Like my old assistant in the G League said, it beats digging ditches.
Definitely. All right, last question. I think Coach Burton, you wanted to ask?
Yeah, so Coach Peck, I'm curious. I know they asked about you being a head coach before and now you're being an assistant and you guys are so in line. I've seen it firsthand, so I know about that alignment. You guys are doing a great job. But I'm curious, with the new kind of search firm and the way that you have to go about navigating to get a head coaching position. 2-part question. One, how have you found your way to navigate that space, which I know it's not the only way you get a job, but it's a part of the process now, almost like social media for recruiting or whatever it may be. And then the second part question is, what do you think you'll do differently now as a head coach at a Division I program versus your other stops?
One, to answer your first question, it is, the search firms are big and they're important, and, having an agent representing, just because those guys will advocate for you and can help you. Like I said, I'm not a social guy. I'm not one of those guys that's just out there and, doing all that stuff. And so for me, I need that. Plus I need him to be able to tell me things that I need to do, that I'm not just, I might know to do them, but I don't like doing them, but he'll kind of force my hand in that regard. It's just not a necessary evil, but it's kind of how it is now. And, you gotta, because it's not what and all these things, they got to know you. Mm-hmm. And ADs are becoming less and less like the like Mike Hamrick at Marshall, who was at UNLV when we were there. He's an old school AD. He's going to do the hiring. I don't need no dang search firm.
Yeah.
That's my job. You know what I mean? But I can appreciate a guy like that, you know. But then there are some that are so into the administration side and the numbers, they don't look. I don't have time to do that. Get a search firm, get a committee, and figure it out, type of thing, and cover their butts, you know. So we can't. It's not I didn't make that choice. They recommended them, and so it is. I mean, I think that's an important part. I mean, again, though, but like, it's different for everybody. You may not need that, and you may not want that, and I wouldn't say you have to have it. For me, it is. It's helpful, and it's been good for me so far. I just kind of figure I just check that box. Yep. I got it. Yeah. Yep. And my agent, I have a good relationship, and I like him, and so it's been fine, and he's been good, and good for me and stuff.
And then real quick, if you don't mind, to piggyback that question, kind of like Coach Tamara was just talking about, even with job and moving, was your kind of aligning with an agent, was that organic, or did it happen because you were searching and you had a friend and like, hey, I got a guy, or how did that part work, if you don't mind me asking?
Drazen Petrovic's nephew, Marko Petrovic, Warren Legary, you guys might know, is one of the big-time agents for NBA head coaches. Drazen, he repped Drazen when you could rep both back in the day. Well, Marko, his nephew, wanted to come and play in the States before he went to college. So Warren gets a hold of me and says, hey, take this kid. He's a tough little gritty player, and he was a great, start for us, was great. Went to San Francisco for a year. Wasn't a school guy. Wanted to, go play professionally back over there at whatever level. So that's what he did. But that I took him. So Warren was, in Warren's eyes, old school, he was forever indebted to me. Mm-hmm. So Warren basically kind of informally repped me. We didn't have a contract or anything, but he looked out for me. He tried to help me with a lot of things college-wise before I actually went to the Trailblazers. Well, again, the Trailblazers reach out, and that's getting done. I think Warren kind of comes in and is the nail in the coffin. He seals the deal because he reps Neil O'Shea, the GM, and he repped Terry Stotts, and he repped, I think, one or two other guys in there. So, he kind of helped in that regard. But, it worked for me, and it's been good, but it's what you're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's that's the nature of it. And then to answer your question, as far as moving over, things I do different, there's a lot of things I do differently. But because I've learned the college game, one thing that I had the luxury at Findlay was time. If we went 4 hours, we'd go 4 hours. We didn't have, compliance down our neck, and you tell a kid you don't like it, who are you going to go bitch to? You just leave, go pack your bags. We'll get somebody else. There's a lot of kids that want to come here. So that was good. I mean, we not having to answer to anybody or a board or dude, that was the key. We spent, I didn't like something, we'd spend, an hour and 20 minutes on shell till it looked the way I wanted it to look. And then we'd get in the rest of the stuff because we could be there for 3.5 hours. So, but I know in college you can't. So I would have to be more efficient in practice, again, and focus on, like I said, what are things that are important to you? What are your areas that, and what are you as a coach? What is your philosophy, and what are you good at? And what do you want your team to be? What's your system like?
Thank you, Coach.
That's great. That's great. Great question. Mike and Tamara, I wanted to say thank you again for this opportunity. This is an opportunity for all of us to grow, just not, those who's affiliated with the Asian Coach Association, but just anyone who just wants to learn. And for those of y'all still out there listening, make sure y'all put your information on there. I know Garrett wrote something on there, but put your information on there, and we'll try to get you guys out the packets that Coach and Mike and Tamara are willing to share with us. Also, go out there and put it on your social, y'all. We want to grow this to help everyone out in our community, both men's and women's basketball. I think this is something big. Mike and I have talked about this numerous of years, just wanting to grow and help one another. And so help us by helping y'all too. And so this is great. I really do believe that they did a great job. I think they could have gone longer if we had the time. But we hope to do this every week. I think we've got a couple speakers next week too, but we want to try to get this going every week for you guys and your friends and the growth of you. But me personally, Tamara and Mike, thank you guys so much for this opportunity and this time to kind of just hear y'all. Y'all did a great job, and I know I took notes. I took so many notes. I'm trying to work and doing the same, do some things on the side. Time I'm doing a lot of stuff for us too. I'm sure he wants to learn and take notes too. But we've got this recorded. I know Garrett put the first Zoom session on YouTube. We plan on doing the same thing for this one. And so feel free to follow us on YouTube as well to get more information. But thank you guys so much on behalf of me and the Asian Coaches Association. And Mike will say some things too, but thank you guys so much though.
No, that's it. Coach Peck, Coach Tamara, thank you guys. We appreciate you. We'll get you back
pleasure.
on
I appreciate it.
Wednesday. You guys both back on?
Yeah. I sent this stuff to Garrett already, so he's got it.
Awesome.
So he'll send it out whenever he's ready. So
Awesome.
anything else you guys else need, just let me know.
Thank you guys. Thanks, Steve. Coach Peck, thank you.
You bet. Thanks, guys.